my home for over 20 years. As Linda said, I was the first City of Oakland Office of Emergency Services Director, appointed by then Mayor Lionel Wilson. In fact, I served under three mayors, the last one being Jerry Brown, which we're all very familiar with, and Elihu Harris. And actually, this is quite a homecoming for me because even this facility is quite special. I was appointed in 1985. In 1986, we had our first winter storm where some landslides occurred back over here in the Claremont area, followed by the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, which was followed by the 1990 freeze that killed all the vegetation up here, followed by the 1991 Oakland firestorm. It was the first city that had back-to-back-to-back presidential declarations. And I think that's why most of my fellow Oakland cohorts get nervous when I come back to town. So, but this is a very special place because this facility almost burned down during the fires. I don't know if they still have photographs out there, but the fire actually came up to the tree line right behind the Claremont. And the Oakland Fire Department, that was one of their shining jewels in that fire. There's not a whole lot of other stuff they did right, but that fire they did in preventing this building from burning down. But as Linda pointed out, it was that fire that led to the creation of the Standardized Emergency Management System, which in my opinion, and in the opinion of many emergency managers across the country, is the backbone of California's emergency management system. We have a standardized way of how we manage all emergencies, and it's based on that fire. Basically, it was a situation where you had hundreds of fire departments showing up to battle a fire that they were not trained to battle. This was the Wildland Urban Interface Fire. A lot has happened since then, but that fire actually occurred on a Saturday morning. It was put out, and then it rekindled on the Sunday morning, because they did not put it out correctly. And consequently, it resulted in over 3,000 homes being burned. Up until the San Diego fires, it was the largest fire of its kind in U.S. history. And it did result in the SIMS legislation. One of the other things, the lessons we learned is never burn down an elected official's home. Because we did burn down Senator Petrus's house during that fire, and that resulted in the legislation that led to SIMS. But everything is better now because we do have the system in place. It complements our mutual aid system, our master mutual aid agreement between all fire and law and emergency medical. It's being expanded now to include public-private partnerships. And so it is something that as a result from that tragedy did come some very good things. I was really asked to talk about some of the state initiatives. The governor did appoint me as director of OES in 2004. And one of the first things he said to me, and I'm sure you have now seen it in action, is that he is an action-oriented governor. He wanted to be out there. He wanted to be with the people after any emergency that happened up and down the state. And he made it very clear to me that when something happens at the local level, he wants the state engaged. And this is back 2004, before we had some of these larger events that really have impacted the way the United States responds. Even post-Katrina. So I did remind him, and I still say this, that all disasters are local. They're the responsibility of local government. Local government responds to them, and local government then asks the county and the states and other cities to help by responding and supporting them. That's the way the system is created, and that's the way the system has worked for years. However, in the post-Katrina world we live in now, that's no longer the case. Both the federal government and the state government are now very proactive about moving resources, supplies, and coordination efforts, and state resources especially, to an affected area even before something happens. This last week with the fires in the Southern California area, with the memory of the fires we've had the last 2 years, the governor ordered supplies, equipment, resources from CAL FIRE, OES, and other state agencies to mobilize and move down south even before the first fires started, because we knew what was coming. We had red flag warnings. If we had the luxury of being forewarned about all these disasters, we could do a lot more. And consequently, I think these fires were controlled much quicker because we did have aircraft, fire engines, personnel, and crews that responded to these fires in the Southern California area even before the first flame came up. So this is the attitude and the approach that our governor takes, and he continues to do that. As you saw this all week, he's been out to 3 sites already and talking with the victims and with the firefighters. So some of the initiatives that we've put in place in the state of California in the last, during his term in the last 5 years, have really addressed a big portion of the emergency management arena. I want to talk just real briefly about some of them and also maybe answer some questions. I'll make sure I'm okay on time. I can't see that thing there. I guess first and foremost, and probably the most important that would impact you, is the public-private partnerships. In 2006, the governor issued an executive order, and we had some legislation passed, and he announced it at the anniversary of the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco, that the state of California, through the Office of Emergency Services, would now be equipped to enter into agreements with private industry. I know this may sound a little odd to some of you because you at the local levels have already done this. When I was director of OES in Oakland, we had a public-private partnership with our local-based businesses. I remember Clorox was one of the major players, Safeway, and some of the other businesses that were located in the Oakland or the Oakland area came to the table with us, would plan for emergency management issues, were part of our emergency management team, and therefore they would help us respond. We did not have that ability at the state level. I know that sounds very strange, and I was very surprised by it too, but this bill allows us to actually enter into memorandums of understanding. Just 2 weeks ago, we had the first official signing of MOUs with Walmart, Target, the Business Executives for National Security, and also the California Utility Emergency Association. These are 2 organizations that encompass a lot of businesses and utilities that have resources that respond to events. This is just the beginning. First Lady Maria Shriver has also worked with the entertainment industry and some of her other organizations that she works with, volunteer programs too, to bring them to the table. So California, the state of California is now equipped to provide a forum and a mechanism for private industry to enter into agreements with the state to facilitate the identification of resources, the mobilization of those resources, and the dispatching of the resources to where they're needed. This is not to take over what you're doing at the local level. This is to complement you and augment you of what you're doing already at the local level. Consequently, this last week with the fires we had down south and even the fires we had and other events we've had since 2006, private industry is to deliver food, supplies, cots, communications equipment, and other things that we would need to help locals in responding. Another significant